My name is Julie, I'm 30 years old and I was born in Aberdeen, but we stay right up in the northeast of Scotland. I love Jesus, I love him with every part of me because he's made such a massive difference in my life. I grew up, I was one of 4 children, had a good enough upbringing, and then my mother and father broke up, and it did have a massive impact on me as a child growing up, and I was very withdrawn and just lost my way a little bit, and went through school, and everyone else was doing okay, my brothers and sisters were doing well, but I just got a little bit lost, and gone through academy. I started experimenting with drugs very young. I think probably the age of 12 I was introduced to speed and ecstasy, and this was just really the beginning of just years and years of madness really, and so it went on like that for a few years, just getting high all the time, and never really gone to school, and missed out on a lot of my education because of it. But I remember then just being really into the party scene and just hopeless. I remember that feeling of hopelessness. Never really wanted to. I remember as a kid, I suppose, you've got dreams, and when you grow up, people want to be a doctor or they want to be a teacher. But I remember just that feeling of emptiness and thinking, well, I'm not really fussed. I had no dreams, I had no purpose in life, I had no direction. And then the next few years, by the age of 15, I was in a relationship, and I fell pregnant. And then when I was 16, I had my son, Jordan, and he was born premature, and he was in neonatal, and my partner at the time told me that there was a bit of a carry on, and he never appeared when he was meant to, and then he appeared, and he says, Julie, I have something to tell you, I'm addicted to heroin. And I suppose to me, I was 16 years of age, I was in hospital, I've got this life in front of me that I have to look after, and it really shattered my world that. And when we came home from hospital, things got crazy. I got really depressed, and Jordan's dad went to prison, and I was put on antidepressants, and life was just dark at that time, and it should have been a time of joy, and it was just a dark time. And I remember one night just thinking, maybe I could try heroin. I had watched him smoke it, and I thought, if I could just try it, I'll get at confidence, and maybe I'll get to sleep, because I didn't sleep very well. And that was just the beginning, and then another 6 years of heroin addiction. And you can to say that it took me on a path that was just destructive. Things went downhill very, very quickly. Within maybe a few months, I was injecting, and his dad would come out of prison, and we would start using, and then I would do okay for a while, and then he would come out, and it was just round and round in circles. And I was put on methadone at this point, and my family were beginning to see the signs, and I was obviously struggling then to look after my child, because I was having to shoplift every day to feed my drug habit, and become very well known for being a shoplifter. And then that got hard, because then I wasn't getting into the shops, and they would be throwing me out, and Julie, come on, you're banned for here, out you go. And that became hard work as well. And we got to a point for the police, my door was getting in all the time, and things were getting really chaotic, and my son was taken from me, and my dad took him. And I remember at that point just hitting rock bottom, because I thought, well, I couldn't even do that, I couldn't even look after him. And I got really involved with crack cocaine, and it was just a horrible time. I began to lose my mind a lot, and I was a bit of a loner. I would sit in my house and just get high on my own. I would go and shoplift all day, and then I would do what I had to do in the evenings to get money. And then I lost all self-worth. I had I was just a horrible person. I wasn't a nice person, and I was just absolutely hopeless. And I suppose then I was introduced to church. The father of my son was in one of the Teen Challenge programs, and I started going along to church really just to see him. That was my plan, but God had other plans, and our relationship broke down anyway, and I kept going along to church, and I remember for the first time in years feeling so accepted, and they never wanted nothing in return. You can, and that's what kept me going back. They would pick me up, they would take me to church, they would feed me, you can, and I thought, these people genuinely care for me. And I remember giving my life to the Lord one night in a meeting. I gave my life to the Lord. I knew I had to respond. My heart was beating really fast, and I thought, I need His help, Ken. But nothing dramatic happened, and I left church that night and still had to go and DFI. I had to get money, and it was then that I was told about Teen Challenge, and I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. I've lost everything. I was still battling with my drug addiction, and I remember that night after I gave my life to the Lord, going home to my home, I was sitting with my crack pipe and everything laid out in front of me, and just began to weep. And I hadn't wept in a long time, because you put up this hardness, because I'd been hurt so much. I thought, well, they're not going to hurt me again, and you put up all these barriers, and I just became very hard. But this night I wept, and I thought, okay, God, if you are real, then maybe, just maybe, I could change my life. And I was told by the people in church about Teen Challenge, and I phoned in, and within maybe 2 weeks I was packing up my flat in Gunawata, Wales, to do the programme. And I can honestly say that I have never ever looked back. Never ever looked back, because and the programme was tough, and the programme was amazing, and the counselling was great, but I met with Jesus in such a real way. I remember being in a chapel service, and we were singing how God has washed us white as snow, and I remember just getting a real revelation of how clean I was. And I felt dirty. I felt really dirty. I had guilt, I had the shame I put my son through. I had the guilt of the things that I'd done to get money. It was just a horrible, you can't even look people in the face. You would walk hunched over, because you just feel so shameless. And I remember one day singing and getting a real revelation for God of how clean I was. And I wept like a baby that day. I mean, they left me there for probably about 2 hours, and I sobbed and sobbed, and I had snot out of my face. It was just horrible. But they left me there, and I can honestly say I got up and I knew that I was different, because God had met with me in that chapel. And when I look at my life now, it is the pinch factor. I have to pinch myself. And that was probably coming up for 10 years ago, and I still have to pinch myself, because I think, God, you chose somebody like me. It's incredible. My life is so different from how it was back in. And I can have the privilege of working in the ministry of Teen Challenge, and I love it. I love reinvesting. I love how God uses everything that we've been through for good. And He does, because sometimes I used to think, well, maybe He could use that, but no, that was Sarah, and I really, that was a hard thing to go through. But God uses everything. If I went through with my son, I can use when I'm speaking to women that are missing their kids, or they're in a similar situation. I lead one of the Teen Challenge outreaches in Aberdeen, and we work with the girls on the street, and I'm able to stand on a street and say, I know how it is. They'll say, how do you, Kate? And I'll say, well, let me tell you my story. And God uses me to reach into other people's lives. There was a scripture that God gave me, and it says, He will give us treasures in the darkness. And I know that I was one of them treasures, and I have the privilege of reinvesting. So that's why I love Him. That's why I love Him, and that's why He's everything to me. And I'll keep praising Him, and I'll keep reinvesting, because just the other day I was teaching the girls one of our modules, and we were speaking about testimony. And it was funny, really, and I was just thinking to myself, I didn't think I've ever said no to sharing my testimony, and they were laughing at me, really, not once. And I says, no, because how can we share what God's done in our lives? So thank you for listening. Thank you.